In the Pentagon's sterile halls, they laughed at her watch, a worthless, old relic on a plain woman's wrist. Then a 4-star general saw it and went ghost white. The watch belonged to an operative he'd personally buried 30 years ago. She was invisible, and she'd spent a lifetime perfecting the art. Maya Corbin passed through the Pentagon security checkpoint, a ghost in a gray wool sweater and dark, sensible slacks. The air hummed with the low thrum of servers and smelled of industrial-strength cleaner mixed with faint, burnt coffee, the scent of institutional power. To the guards behind the bulletproof glass, she was just another Tuesday appointment, a name on a list, forgotten the moment she was out of sight. Her escort, Lieutenant Eva Rostova, arrived with a brisk click of polished shoes on the linoleum floor. The lieutenant was sharp, ambitious, her wrist adorned with the latest sleek smartwatch that silently pulsed with notifications. Her eyes did a quick, dismissive scan of Maya. "Ms. Corbin. I'm Lieutenant Rostova. I'll be your escort. Please stay close, the corridors can be confusing for civilians." Rostova's gaze snagged for a moment on Maya's wrist. There, against the backdrop of her plain sweater, was a watch that was an affront to the building's modernity. It was a Hamilton khaki field, but one that had seen wars, not boardrooms. The crystal face was a spiderweb of fine scratches, the leather strap was dark and stiff from decades of sweat and rain, and its metal casing was worn smooth at the edges. Rostova subtly glanced back at her own glowing screen, a flicker of pity or perhaps contempt in her eyes. As they navigated the labyrinthine earring, Maya's quiet eyes missed nothing: the model numbers of the Hikvision cameras, the placement of the Wi-Fi signal boosters, the slight wear on the floor tiles that indicated the most heavily trafficked routes. Old habits. They passed a pair of young, uniformed officers leaning against a wall, their conversation pausing as Maya and her escort approached. One of them, a captain with a cocky grin, nudged his companion. "Check out the watch," he whispered, just loud enough for Maya to hear. "Is that what my grandfather wore? I can't believe someone would wear that piece of junk in here." His friend snickered. "Maybe it's a good luck charm. Bet it's not even working." If Maya heard, she gave no sign. Her expression remained neutral, her posture unchanged. But her left hand came up in a slow, almost unconscious gesture, her fingertips brushing protectively over the watch's scratched crystal. It was a movement so subtle, so private, that to anyone watching, it looked like she was simply adjusting her sleeve. To her, it was an instinct, a quiet communion with the only thing that had been with her through it all. Lieutenant Rostova deposited Maya in a small, sterile waiting area outside a main conference room. "The general is running behind schedule. Someone will be with you shortly. Do not wander off." The finality in her tone was a dismissal. Maya sat, positioning herself in a chair that gave her a clear view of the corridor and the conference room doors. She didn't check a phone or read a magazine. She simply waited, a portrait of unnerving stillness. 30 minutes bled into 40 before the conference room doors swung open, releasing a wave of serious-looking officers in mid-discussion. "Project Chimera is greenlit," a stern-faced Navy commander was saying. "All legacy monitoring protocols from the Cold War era are officially terminated. We're streamlining for a modern threat landscape." Maya's posture didn't change, but her focus sharpened. The name Chimera was new, but the language of terminating legacy protocols sent a cold spike of alarm through her. Her hand, resting on her lap, instinctively tightened into a fist. As the officers dispersed, a different man approached her. He was younger, sharp-eyed, with the unmistakable air of a tech-savvy intelligence analyst. His nameplate read, "Commander Hayes." "Ms. Corbin," he said, his tone clipped and suspicious. He was holding a tablet. "I'm Commander Hayes. General Thorne has been further delayed. I've been authorized to address your matter." He led her into the now empty conference room. "Before we begin," Hayes said, not bothering to offer her a seat, "we ran your credentials. And the thing is, you don't exist. No digital footprint. No social media, no credit score, no driver's license. This visitor pass was generated from a ghost file that hasn't been accessed since before the internet was a public utility. So, before I call security, I suggest you explain who you really are. The challenge was direct, a digital gauntlet thrown down. The scorn from the hallway had now crystallized into official suspicion. Maya met his gaze without flinching. She reached into her simple leather messenger bag and retrieved a tiny object, placing it on the polished mahogany table. It was an unmarked, black microSD card. "This isn't about a pension, Commander," she said, her voice quiet but carrying an authority that made Hayes pause. "The information on this card pertains to Project Nightjar. And I'm quite certain," she added, her eyes locking onto his, "that your security clearance is insufficient to discuss it." Commander Hayes stared at the microSD card, then back at Maya, his face a mask of disbelief and professional outrage. Project Nightjar is a defunct designation from a decommissioned. He was cut off by the conference room door opening. A 4-star general, Marcus Thorne, strode in, his presence immediately commanding the space. He was a man forged by decades of command, his uniform a testament to a life of service. He was mid-sentence with an aide, reviewing a document on a tablet. "Hayes, is this my 1430, he asked, not looking up. "Yes, General," Hayes replied, his voice tight with frustration. "This is Ms. Corbin. She's making some unsubstantiated claims about a legacy operation." General Thorne finally looked up, a practiced, diplomatic smile forming on his lips. "Ma'am, I apologize for the delay, how can I?" His words died in his throat. His eyes, trained to assess threats in a nanosecond, had fallen from Maya's face to her wrist. To the worn, battered Hamilton watch. The faded serial number on its side, barely legible to anyone else, might as well have been a tactical nuke in the center of the room. The atmosphere shattered. The diplomatic smile on Thorne's face vanished, replaced by a ghastly pallor. The blood drained from his face, leaving his skin the color of ash. He went ghost white. The tablet slipped from his numb fingers, crashing to the floor with a sickening crack of shattered glass. No one moved. "Everyone, out," Thorne choked out, his voice a raw, strangled whisper. Hayes hesitated, utterly bewildered. "Sir, she has no clearance, I said, everyone out. Now." The roar was like a whip crack, an explosion of pure, unadulterated authority mixed with something else, fear. The aides and Hayes scrambled out of the room, casting confused, frightened glances back at the unassuming woman and their terrified general. The heavy door clicked shut, sealing Maya and General Thorne in a sudden, ringing silence. Decades of unspoken history hung between them. Thorne stumbled back, his hand gripping the back of a chair for support. His eyes never left the watch. "Sentinel-7, he whispered, the code name tasting like dust and ghosts in his mouth. "Unit designation DW-113. "It can't be. It's impossible." He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "I signed the report myself. After the wall fell. I attended your memorial service, Maya. I saw them carve your name into the stone." Maya met his haunted gaze. Her voice was steady, a lighthouse in his storm of disbelief. "And yet, here I am, General." Just then, the door burst open again. Commander Hayes stood there, flanked by 2 armed security officers. "General, I've confirmed it. Her credentials are deep forgeries. I'm taking her into custody." Thorne rose slowly, turning to face his subordinate. He seemed to age a decade, then regain his strength in a single breath. He stepped between Hayes and Maya, shielding her. Then, to everyone's utter shock, he turned back to the woman in the gray sweater, drew himself to his full height, and rendered a perfect, formal military salute. "Commander Hayes," Thorne said, his voice now imbued with a chilling reverence. "You will stand down. You are in the presence of Lieutenant Commander Maya Corbin." Her unit officially never existed. Her orders were never written. And her service, he paused, his eyes finding Maya's, never ended. In the hallowed quiet of General Thorne's private office, the air was thick with the ghosts of 30 years. He poured 2 glasses of bourbon from a crystal decanter, his hand still trembling slightly. He pushed one towards Maya. She didn't touch it. "You're dead," he said again, the words a blunt instrument of his own disbelief. The entire Sentinel protocol was terminated. An explosion at the safe house in Prague. We were told it was the KGB. All assets lost. The intelligence was wrong, Maya stated, her voice devoid of accusation. It was simply a fact. The explosion was a message. A house cleaning. 3 of us were inside. The rest of us were in the wind. We were abandoned, left behind the new curtain. "We never abandoned you," Thorne insisted, his voice cracking. "We mourned you." "Did you?" A flicker of something, not bitterness, but a deep, ancient weariness, crossed her face. Or was it easier to believe we were gone? The question hung in the air, unanswered. "For 30 years, Thorne whispered, you've been operational. Without contact. Without support." Maya finally looked at the glass of bourbon. "Some of us were. We kept watching. Yevgeny died in Minsk in 2008. A heart attack. At least, that's what the report said. Katerina was compromised in Kiev in 2011. We never heard from Westlake after '94. Each name was a stone dropped into a deep well of silence. Later, they stood in the crisp autumn air of Arlington National Cemetery. Thorne led her to a quiet, secluded section, to a simple granite memorial stone engraved with 12 names under the heading, Project Nightjar, 1989. Her own name was there. Maya A. Corbin. She reached out, her fingers tracing the cold, carved letters. For the first time, her stoic facade cracked. A single, silent tear traced a path down her cheek. "Every year," Thorne said softly, "a few of us come here. We pour a glass of bourbon for each of you. It was what you said you wanted in your last transmission." He then reached into his coat and produced a small box. Inside, a new Hamilton khaki field watch rested on a bed of velvet, identical to hers but pristine, its crystal unmarked, its strap a light, healthy tan. "Your watch has earned its rest, Commander. So have you." Maya looked down at the battered timepiece on her wrist, its steady ticking a heartbeat that had counted out 30 years of solitude. She slowly unfastened the buckle, revealing a pale, white strip of skin on her wrist, a permanent mark left by time and duty. She held the old watch in her palm for a long moment before placing it in Thorne's outstretched hand. "It belongs in a museum," she said. "A story no one will ever read." The fragile peace of Arlington was shattered by the frantic buzz of Thorne's secure phone. They were rushed to a secure communications hub deep within the Pentagon, a room pulsating with the blue light of a dozen tactical screens. Commander Hayes was there, his earlier arrogance replaced by grim efficiency. "Sir, we have a situation," he said, addressing both Thorne and Maya. The extraction of Sentinel-4, Kestrel, in Odessa went sideways. On the main screen, a chaotic drone feed flickered to life, muzzle flashes in a dark alley, the sound of Russian voices shouting, and a glimpse of Kestrel being dragged, wounded, into a waiting helicopter. "He made it out," Hayes reported, but he wasn't alone when the team arrived. 3 FSB officers. All neutralized. Kestrel had this on him. "He said you'd understand." Hayes held up an evidence bag. Inside was another Hamilton watch, its face shattered, but its hands frozen at 11:04. Maya took the bag, her face hardening into a mask of cold fury. "This isn't Kestrel's watch. This belonged to Sentinel-3. Lawrence Chen. He vanished in St. Petersburg 6 months ago." "What does 11:04 mean?" Thorne demanded. "It's an old emergency code," Maya explained, her voice low and dangerous. Section 1104 of the old intelligence charter. It means one thing: we've been compromised from the inside. They're not just waiting for us to die out. They're hunting us. As if on cue, a technician shouted from across the room. General, I've got the satellite feed of the Krasnoyarsk site you requested. Putting it on screen now. The image that filled the screen was a thermal overlay of a supposedly abandoned Siberian industrial complex. But it wasn't abandoned. It was glowing with heat, a hive of subterranean activity. Maya stepped closer, her eyes scanning the patterns of movement. That's triple the activity from my last report 2 days ago, she said, her voice grim. They're accelerating. They know we're coming for them. Thorne turned to Hayes. Get me the Secretary of Defense. Now. The hunt was on, and they were no longer the hunters. The ghosts of the Cold War were fighting back. The next 24 hours were a blur of high-level briefings in the White House Situation Room. Maya, the ghost from the past, found herself at the center of the nation's security apparatus, her 30 years of lonely intelligence becoming the bedrock of their strategy. Late that night, she found herself back at Arlington, standing before her own name under the cold moonlight. Thorne found her there. The president has authorized a strike, he said quietly. A special forces team is being prepped. They deploy in 6 hours. They'll fail, Maya said without turning. The facility is designed to withstand a direct assault. The only way to stop it is from the inside. Thorne's face hardened. If you're suggesting what I think you are, the answer is no. You've done enough. It's not your decision, Marcus, she replied, using his first name for the first and last time. It never was. There's a flaw in their system, a logic virus we planted 30 years ago. It was our final contingency. But it needs a key to be activated. A 128-bit string, delivered physically to the master control node. A key that was split among 4 senior operatives. She finally turned to face him, her eyes clear and resolute. I'm the only one left who remembers my part of the code. A suicide mission. The final protocol. The next morning, a small, solemn ceremony was held at the memorial stone. Present were only Thorne, the Secretary of Defense, and the 2 other sentinels who had been successfully extracted. They watched as a technician placed Maya's old, battered watch into a small, permanent glass case at the base of the monument. A simple brass plaque was affixed beneath it. It read, Sentinel 7, for those who watch while others sleep. As they stood in silent tribute, Thorne received a secure message on his device. He read it, his face impassive, but his shoulders straightened. He looked at the remaining sentinels, then at the enshrined watch. Mission proceeding, he announced, his voice thick with emotion. Khaki 7 is operational. Miles away, a woman who no longer had a name moved through a frozen Siberian landscape towards a nondescript industrial complex. Her papers were perfect. Her cover was flawless. And on her wrist, a new, unmarked Hamilton khaki field watch ticked with quiet, resolute precision. Some missions never truly end. The story of Maya Corbin is not in any official record. Her sacrifice is a secret the world will never know, a silent victory that keeps us safe. How many other heroes like her are out there, watching over us from the shadows? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, please comment with respect. If this story moved you, hit that like button, share it with a friend, and subscribe for more untold tales of courage. Thanks for watching.